What I'm arguing here, ladies and gentlemen, is that U.S. foreign policy is not foolish, it's not stupid, it's quite rational. When someone says, what are we doing? We're opposing guerrillas in El Salvador and we're supporting guerrillas in Nicaragua. That's quite rational. Because the guerrillas in El Salvador want to change the social order, and the so-called guerrillas, they're not guerrillas, they don't live with the people and build their base in the country. The mercenaries and Contras who are attacking Nicaragua want to bring back the old order. There's a very rational system. They're not foolish, they're not confused, they know what they're doing. It is to defend the class order, to make the world safe for hypocrisy. Star Wars, besides being that defense, that first strike shield, people say it's too expensive. What are you talking about? It's too expensive. That's one of its attractions. It's going to cost $1 trillion. It'll cost more than the entire New Deal WPA program and the Manhattan Project, which gave us the atomic bomb, and the Eisenhower Highway Project. Put all of them together, and the building of the railroads, put all of them together, they won't cost as much as Star Wars. $1 trillion is for the first stage, they think, the first stage. That's what the boys like who have the defense contracts. That's what they love. They see dollar bills. Getting there is all the fun. Whether the system works or doesn't work, the expensiveness is the major attraction. It will violate the ABM treaty, and now we see even it violate the atmospheric testing treaty. What's wrong with that? Reagan has no loyalty to the ABM or the atmospheric testing. He's been wanting to violate them since he's been in office. Now, having said all this and giving you this picture, I would like to add something else. That the ruling class rules, but it doesn't rule quite in the way it wants to. That in fact, we must not be overwhelmed by these facts or this analysis, but we must be enlightened. We could understand why they do these things. Ronald Reagan is not stupid. He gets confused. He goes to Ecuador and says, it's wonderful being here in Colombia. You know, I mean, he does things like that, and he muffles on questions. Reagan, though, has been the most successful and rational and persistent president that I have ever seen in office in every single area, whether it's NLRB or busting unions or cutting human services or his treatment of the environment, he is, or defense spending or foreign policy, he has advanced, or the appointment of reactionary judges, every single area, defunding the left, whatever. He has not left a stone unturned. He has advanced and pushed persistently. He has a cohesive goal and program. It's the goal of Cap Weinberger and Pat Buchanan. It's the goal of the radical right, and he has been rather successful at it, but not completely, because at the same time, in the years that Reagan has been in office, the protest has grown. Democratic forces have grown. Changes continue throughout the world. Peace forces in the Soviet Union. By the way, there are massive peace forces. Millions of people marched. The Leningrad Peace Committee. There were photos of these people marching with these banners. No missiles east or west. And again, you should make a distinction between a country which supports and encourages a massive peace movement and a government like ours which derides it, red baits it, ignores it, or puts it down. A nuclear freeze movement. Democratic forces have grown in power since Vietnam. Do you realize that Ronald Reagan has not invaded Nicaragua? I mean, do you realize, as I said before, that the United States has invaded Nicaragua 11 times and has actually occupied Nicaragua 3 times, including for periods of as much as 10 or 13 years, and the Marines went in there and burnt huts and killed people and raped and murdered and dismembered people? Coleman McCarthy just had a column in the Washington Post of a 78-year-old guy who said, I was in there when we were fighting Sandino back in 1928, and when I got out as a young kid, I had nightmares for years after. I shot innocent people. We saw guys getting their genitals cut off and tortured. The Marines did that. Do you realize that? Do you realize today the United States has a striking power, a deployment power, a force, a delivery power that's 1,000 times more powerful than anything Calvin Coolidge had? And you got a president that's 1,000 times nuttier than Calvin Coolidge, who would like to go in there, who wants to go in, and yet he hasn't. Well, what's held him back? It's the democratic forces. It's the same thing that kept Nixon from using nuclear weapons in Vietnam, as the story came out when the Pentagon Papers were released, or not the Pentagon Papers, the White House tapes, where they were afraid of what the disruption and the reaction of the people in their own country. It's the democratic forces in this country, it's the democratic forces around the world, it's the Nicaraguan people who are armed and ready. He could go in and carpet bomb it with B-52s, not lose a single man, and just devastate it and destroy it. But then he would have to go in with troops. Like that line in Antigone, you would make of it a graveyard and call it peace. But those troops would still find survivors, and they would have to fight them. And there would be unacceptable losses. And Americans would die in Nicaragua. And the war might escalate. And all over Latin America people might rise up. Why do you think those Latin American leaders, those corrupt, rich, comprador, collaborationist leaders, say to Ronald Reagan, we don't want you in Nicaragua, we oppose that policy, we support the Contrador program? Are they suddenly going left on us? No, they're worried about the reaction of their own people. The losses in Nicaragua would be unacceptable, but unacceptable to whom? Not to Ronald Reagan. He wouldn't mind losing 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 American boys if he can take Nicaragua. That's no loss to him. He's got plenty of fodder. He's got it right in this room. He'll have you down there. He had 261 Marines blown away in Lebanon in one day, and he wanted to go back in with more and fight more. Those were acceptable losses to him. That was no skin off his nose. It's his class interests he's worrying about. He kept talking about the emergence of a Lebanese left and Lebanese socialism, and we must stop it. It was unacceptable losses politically. That means that there are political forces that can fight back. That it's too costly to him, not morally. So, we may be stronger than we think. And we must never believe what they try to make us believe about ourselves, that we're weak, that we don't have it, you see.